Hello, guys and girls. The program you are about to hear will be both fun and educational, but it is not a substitute for medical advice. Although we are doctors, we are not your doctors. Hello, and welcome to Travel Medicine. As always, I'm your friendly neighborhood internal medicine doc, Dr. J.
Hey, Dr. Santhosh here, your amazing pediatric infectious disease doc and researcher.
And Santhosh, it's that special time of
Mhm.
year again. The time when we've run out of other holidays and it's cold and it's gloomy and we need something. Anything, damn it.
A little breather in the midst of it.
We need a reason to go on, to look forward to tomorrow, to get through the day. Of course, I'm
Okay.
referring to the beginning Girl Scout cookie
Woo!
season.
Oh, get you some Samoas. Is this a little in that you're giving me for me to shamelessly promote like my daughter's cookie selling campaign?
I just
Or
want to know if there's a discount for buying in bulk.
I think we could work something out, yeah.
um, oh, and for those of you who are in romantic relationships, it's also Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Oh, by the way. Yeah, let's do something mushy.
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far. I tell you what, I'll give you a little bit of holiday mixed with alternate week. And you know what
Oh.
happens on alternate
Oh
week,
man.
Santosh?
Oh, let's get Kermit arms going, but like kind of like a gentle waving like you do at a Boys to Men's concert.
Everybody get your stiff puppet arms out, raise them up over your head.
Yay.
It's time for everybody's favorite segment, Journal Club. Yay! Valentine
That's not
edition.
that that's not for every journal club. That's just for this one. Yeah.
Valentine edition.
Mm.
so
Oh
this week,
yeah.
so this week we are going to be looking over a couple stories that, at least by some stretch of the imagination, tie into the theme of love.
Or at least lust. There's a few of these, but I'm pretty sure this one is one of our like loviest love editions that we've had in a while.
So let's begin with a case presentation, Santosh. Picture
Okay.
this. You're an
Mm,
emergency room doctor in Brazil, and it's just a common night like any other. A gentleman walks in a little shy. You start having a conversation, and you learn quickly that his problem, his reason for admission,
yeah.
is an erection that has lasted longer than 4 hours.
Uh,
What's at the top of
okay.
your differential diagnosis?
Okay, so I'm almost certain this is a younger person, I'm guessing, right? Like 20s, 30s, something like that.
Immaterial.
Immaterial. Okay. Well, then I would say either recreationally or, because they need it for reasons of erectile dysfunction, they have taken PDE5 inhibitor, so sildenafil, the little blue pill, Viagra, is the most commonly well known. But I'm fairly sure that's what's going on here. That just maybe took too much of a dose or had an unfortunate side effect, and we need to make sure that the erection doesn't last for too long because then you'll get ischemia of the penis, and we're going to treat for that kind of a thing. Am I
So
right?
your so your guess is Viagra. You are completely wrong in every conceivable way.
oh, oh
In fact,
no.
in fact what you should
Okay.
have said is
Yes.
spider bite.
Okay, okay, hold on. We're in Brazil, so there's some scary spiders. Generally speaking, spiders will produce like a neurotoxin, right? It'll cause like paralysis or something like that because the spiders use that to, envenomate their prey and they drag them into the burrow to slowly kill them and eat them. Or
And
there will be
apparently,
some,
and
yeah.
apparently what a way to go. because the
Okay.
Brazilian wandering spider is
Yeah.
not on any list of the top 5 venomous spiders in the world, but emergency wards are
Okay.
used to seeing patients bitten due to the telltale erection. It's one of the first questions the doctor asks a patient. Have you been exposed to any spiders lately? Because one of the toxins from this
Oh.
spider, PNTX2 6, recently renamed Eratina because
Yep.
this
Okay.
this 4-inch spider potent venom
Jeez. Oh
gives it
God.
gives a nasty and occasionally fatal nip that increases the blood pressure and causes hours long erections. So it causes nitric oxide to be released in the brain, which leads to
Okay.
a chemical cascade producing another compounder enzyme called cyclene guanosine monophosphate, or CGMP, which
Yes.
then causes the muscles in the penis to relax, allowing more blood to rush into it and cause an erection. A few hours later, however, another compound called PDE5, your Viagra
Okay.
active ingredient, breaks down this
Right.
CGMP and returns the penis to its previous state. So the spider's
Yeah.
bite works from the opposite
Uh-huh.
pathway, or the opposite end of the pathway as Viagra.
Yeah, so nitric oxide, when released locally, right? So it's actually released throughout, the entire body. It's a vasodilator instead. It's one of the things that allows the blood vessels to kind of open up and this kind of thing. And so the nitric oxide, you like it, you want it around, and in this particular case, though, I guess aside from relaxing smooth muscle and other areas of the body and other arteries and that kind of a thing, uh, part of it's going to be your penis. And so if you have constant nitric oxide release, you overwhelm PDE5, and it's you just have much more nitric oxide than what you can contend with, and you get a happy time, I guess. um, but yeah, so rather than inhibiting the PDE5, you're overexpressing the nitric oxide. Um, oh, can you treat it? Can you do something for this nice person, or are they just very happy and they wanted to come here and brag?
So the main thrust of this story is
Oh,
that
come on.
it may allow scientists to find alternative drugs to treat erectile dysfunction.
Oh, okay, guys. So we're harnessing toxins. So a lot like how we harness the very deadly botulinum toxin, and then inject it into our face to get rid of wrinkles. This time we are harnessing another potentially lethal toxin and using it for yeah, some stiff competition against Viagra.
However, if you want to know the treatment for an erection that doesn't go away, you might have a ultrasound to make sure there's no blood clots or any
Yes.
ischemic area. That's right, your penis can have a stroke. No, not that kind, you naughty
Yes.
brains person.
It seems that there's plenty of blood supply when certain muscles relax and there's blood flow, and the penis is flush with blood. But the problem is, if that blood doesn't drain properly, it actually causes what's called a physical tamponade. And so eventually that blood that's in there runs out of oxygen, the tissues run out of oxygen, and the tissue starts to die. No es bueno.
So, in some cases, treatment is just ice packs. Ice packs on the unit and the perineum to help end. In other cases, you may have to use something known as aspiration decompression, where excess blood is drained using a small
Yep.
needle.
Yep. Yep.
So, using a
Yeah.
spider bite is probably not the ideal way, but I just liked the idea that this is common enough that Brazil refers to it as the erection spider.
The study that that we've posted in the show notes down below, and that you sent over to me, Josh, really fascinating, because they went ahead and injected aging and young rats with the extracted toxin. And very interestingly, the older rats that, and I didn't know that this happened, but the older rats have age related erectile dysfunction. The spider venom was able to reverse it. So, not ready for human consumption yet, but we have cured some old rats of age related ED.
And they're like this is the experimentation I signed up for.
Yeah, someone got a grant for that, Josh.
Well, let's move
Now,
on
it's,
to
I think it's important. I think it's important, but I still love that someone got a grant for that. Okay, go ahead.
let's move on to let's move on to our next story. Did you ever go on any blind dates before you met your wife, Santosh?
I went on a couple. Yeah, not terribly successful, unfortunately. How
So
about you?
no, so
Blind date?
no, so no gazing across a crowded room, feeling an instant spark, your heart beating faster, or any physiological response.
Ugh, I had a few of those. I just, uh, the uh, the attention was not mutual. The response was not mutual.
Well, somebody else got a grant to see how often that happens at dating events.
Oh, cool. Okay. Are you saying like, the hearts beat as one, like sparks, like that kind of feeling?
Quite literally, blind date hearts sync when there is mutual attraction.
And this is sync like SYNC, not like SINK.
Yes, like the Justin Timberlake kind of NSYNC.
All right, very nice. Okay, so you're telling me that we did like some blind dating experiment with a bunch of sensors on people, and they watched couples sync up.
So the purpose of the study was to measure the dynamics between pairs of participants in real life dating interactions outside of the laboratory. So they had to wear eye
Hmm.
tracking glasses. Think like remember Google Glass
Yeah,
with
yeah, the old. Oh, yeah. I'm sure. This sounds like a good situation to actually like
n-
gauge how much you like someone.
nothing more attractive. So eye tracking glasses with embedded cameras and devices to measure signals like heart rate and skin conductance, or whether your hair raises or you sweat. Um, Overt signals like
Okay.
smiles, laughter, or mimicry was not significantly associated with attraction. Instead, the synchronization of heart rate and skin conductance, which is covert, unconscious, and difficult to regulate, was measured to assess attraction. And it turns out if someone's sitting there and laughing at all your jokes, you may never hear from them again. But if you happen to have a
Sure.
stethoscope handy and you're both listening to each other's hearts, you just may have
Yeah.
found the one.
It was so good. And we're looking at correlations right now, right? It's not one of these things that's like, oh my God, absolutely, if their heart synced up or if their skin conductance was the same according to these testings, they would go out. As you can imagine, with these couples, I think they had like 140 people. This was testing in heterosexual couples, so guy girl couples. And unfortunately, Josh, only about 17% of them fully matched. Like they said, each person saying that I like to go out with them another time. But when you looked at those folks that said, oh, we do want to match up or, we're attracted to each other, and then you ran this very cool, like computer correlation kind of a thing with significance, then yeah, that synchrony strength of heart rate and skin conductance, um, it kind of followed this nice linear curve of like if they were not attracted there was less synchrony, if they were more attracted there was more synchrony. And on the other hand, if you took a look with the videos of how often, if one person would smile then the other person would smile, or face gaze mimicry, which means if one person looks longingly into your face, the other person looks longingly into your face, that actually was not correlated with, hey, I'd like to go on another date, like the mutual, attraction kind of a thing. So very, very weird. You're right. I guess we can't trust our like regular signals, and we're gonna have to bring like some Fitbits along to blind dates from here on in.
Pardon me. Do you mind if I just check your responses on your Apple Watch? Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful! It appears that we have the same P wave and even QRS
Yeah.
complex.
Oh yes,
This
yeah, and new generation, smartwatches and stuff. Probably, checking the salinity or how much you're sweating off your skin, and it's, oh look, our skin conductance is the same. That kind of-
this is going to be the new
oh man,
astrology,
but
Santosh.
with tech the way that it's going and dating the way that it's going right now, I wouldn't be surprised though. This would be a pretty cool way of finding your mate. I
Can
love
you
it. I
can
absolutely love
you can you imagine the new kinds of stereotypes that'll form? I'm sorry, I don't date Brady Cardics.
it. Oh my God, he had a heart rate of 62. Joni, can you imagine 62? I walked out of there so fast. Oh my God.
And then he provoked my AFib into RVR.
Which, by the way, if that's that person sitting across from you is a younger person and has like spontaneous AFib like that, probably, not a great match anyway. That unless you're really into resuscitating people, which may be your thing. I don't know.
It was love at first ACLS.
I love it. By the way, no offense to people with congenital conduction defects, heart condition defects. I just realized that I just dissed a population of our audience, Josh. I apologize.
Well, that's okay, Santosh. All you have to do to earn their forgiveness is cry.
Okay. Oh, can we take a quick mark real quick?
And we're back. And Santosh, are you still crying to gain the forgiveness? Because
Uh, I could, yeah, yeah. Some shed some big, beautiful tears to, get some sympathy. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
because it turns out a scientific study has been done that shows tears lower aggression.
Ooh, okay. All right. So a person is shedding tears and you're mad and that kind of thing. And then it's like, oh, man, I can't be mad anymore. Like after you see them crying like that, right?
Right. So rodent tears, stay with me.
What? Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Rodent tears contain chemical signals with effects that include blocking male aggression. Now, human tears
Okay.
also contain chemo signals that lower male testosterone, but the actual behavioral impact and significance has been unclear. Now,
Okay.
working under the theory that reduced testosterone is associated with reduced aggression, because we do see a correlation between the two, they
Okay.
tested the hypothesis that human tears act like rodent tears and found sniffing emotional based tears with no odor.
Wait, what?
Maybe you need to hear how this study worked.
Where did they? Okay, they got emotional tears.
They applied tears to 62 human olfactory receptors in vitro that respond in a dose dependent manner to this stimulus.
Okay.
Then
Oh wow. Okay.
Then they repeated the experiment using actual humans and functional brain
Okay.
MRIs.
They had to provoke tears from like emotional tears from people. I'm guessing women or human females, and then applied these to like nose cells, right? The like neuronal olfactory cells, and said, "Hey, does this, do we actually get a cross stimulation here for some of these receptors? Because you can kind of test when the actual the receptors are being stimulated and
Well,
when they send off chemical signals."
well, here you go,
And then they
Santosh.
said, "Here, dudes, you smell this, and how do you feel?"
Well, Santosh, let's go into the methods. First,
Okay. Yeah.
the researchers conducted a long-term screen for women who can cry with ease, ultimately identifying 6 donors, age range 22 to 25, who gave
Ooh. Okay.
who gave written consent for science to make them cry.
Okay. Yeah.
They were all under contraceptives to eliminate the effects of ovulation on body odor. They
Oh. Okay. Gotcha.
To obtain tears, they watched sad film clips in isolation and used a mirror to place a vial capturing the tears trickling down their cheeks. What's the saddest movie you've ever seen? Put a test tube in your face and cry to it.
Oh God, so much How to Tame Your Dragon. So
A typical
that's mine anyway.
donation, a typical donation used in this study contained 1.6 milliliters of tears. That's the amount of my enemy's tears I consume each night.
Okay, just for people who are following along at home, 5 milliliters is about a teaspoon, so it's like a fifth of that. Okay.
Before tear collection, saline was trickled down the cheek of the donor woman and collected in the same way as tears.
Oh, okay. So they just didn't use like any old saline. They actually like they kind of washed the face of a woman and then collected that one as if she had cried the saline.
Sterile crying, emotionless tears.
Okay, gotcha.
Then, then
That's so cool.
the
Uh-huh.
tears in saline were flash frozen in liquid nitrogen and kept,
Ooh.
frozen till use. Now, in 2 of the experiments, they were thawed out for about 10 minutes to achieve temperature equilibrium and a headspace in the sniff jar. This is science at its finest.
I love this so much. Okay, so they had to be put in a chamber and then holding a jar of tears. Okay. Okay.
So, participants were then exposed to the stimuli in 13 timed sniffs from a glass jar containing 1
Uh-huh.
milliliter of stimulus with an inter-sniff interval of 35 seconds. So,
I love this so much.
so I bring you into a room and I tell you,
Yeah.
"Hello, sir. I want you to take this vial of tears and I want you to sniff it 13 times. But in between each
No, no,
sniff, I'm
no.
going to need you to
Josh,
wait."
Josh, this was double blinded. So the neither the participant nor the examiner knew if it was tears or saline. So they would just say like sniff this jar.
So the first 3 sniffs were always of saline solution, which was just the control,
Okay.
and the
Okay, okay.
following 10 sniffs were of the experimental compound, either tears or the trickled saline. Each sniff was rated based on its odor, pleasantness, familiarity, and then this experiment just keeps getting better. Then
No, it's better because you have to be able to see if the participant knows what they're smelling and stuff. And I think this was just all over the place, right? Like people didn't know what they were smelling. They didn't have a preference of one over the other. So like it wasn't like their aggression was being tipped off because like, oh, cookies and
so so
so yeah.
after they did the sniff test, then they pasted a pad filled with tears, actual human tears, underneath the
Okay.
participants' noses and had them play a aggression video game. Like, and you may be wondering, how do we measure aggression? Well, you play
Yeah.
this PSAP, which is an online computer game where you're playing against an opponent who you are told is a real person. And you're told you have to earn as much money as possible and you'll get it at the end of the game. And
Hmm.
one person will have the ability to steal money from the other player, but the other player won't. And guess what? It's never you who gets to be that. So it's to see how aggressive you get when you
Yeah.
see
You're always the chump, yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the description of that game is also a lot of fun and worth reading. But the point being, we have learned to measure both aggression and tears, and then you had to fill out a questionnaire to rate your desire to meet your opponent and beat them to a bloody pulp.
Yeah. So you had the PSAP, I think it was what it was called, the standardized test that they took, and the questionnaire after. And then actually, Josh, they did I believe fMRI testing as well, right? Like they actually brain scanned.
At the end of the day, when we look at the results, there was a small difference between tears and saline. Not big enough to really appreciate one or the other, but if you think you're sniffing tears, you will probably be less aggressive on follow-up questionnaires from guilt or presumably other reasons.
So we don't fully understand why this happens, but the interesting thing is, especially in the neuroimaging, the aggression pathways, right? The pathways in the brain that actually connect, our olfactory senses to neural activity regulates behavior and aggression or they fired in a different pattern, and the aggression pathways were actually suppressed to a fair degree. And you're right, Josh. The correlation wasn't fantastic, but it was significant enough.
It was significant enough that if someone is charging at you and angry, pull out your vial of tears and toss it at them. You never know, may
Yeah.
work.
This is one of these like superhero weird things that you can placate someone like this because this is kind of the neat thing about this, right, Josh? This took out the visual stimulus of watching the other person cry, right? So you were looking at the olfactory stimulus, and that in and of itself seems to change the your aggression. And this was tightly controlled, and it was women's tears on men. It was all for dudes. So there is a little, hint here of something where it should require a little bit more investigation. But I'm fascinated.
It wasn't a very powerful
Yeah,
study. It was the tears of 6 women tested on 62 men.
right. But I like it. I like the premise is there, and it bears further investigation. And I'm fascinated to find out if you could harness like super concentrate, like the olfactory signal that really turns down the aggression, and then just like use
Oh,
that to like chill people out.
that
Like
feels
release it in like at 1 a.m. in a bar full of rowdy dudes.
that feels like a Motown song. Tears of 6 women used for science on 62 men.
62
Woo up.
men.
You lowered my aggression with tears or sterile saline. I just can't tell, darling, 'cause your Z scores in the mean. No. Um,
Oh, the nerdiest love song ever. I
so
absolutely love it.
let's move on to our next story, and we can even close out. Of course, this is a Valentine's themed episode and journal club. So how could we not talk
Yeah.
about falling in love and its effects on your immune system?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this one made me so happy because I study infectious diseases. The lab of which I am a part also studies the inflammatory system and immunology. So I love that love can regulate the immune system.
So, to characterize the impact of romantic love on the human genome, This group of researchers conducted a genome-wide transcriptome profiling 115 cell samples collected from 47 young women over the course of 2 years. So, again, this appears to be primarily aimed at heterosexual love. Um,
Hmm.
and it found that those who had a surge of hormones that you often see in love upregulated their type 1 interferon responses, which are used in fighting viruses. So, it's also used to a lesser
Yeah.
extent to facilitate sexual reproduction. But if you see somebody that you want to get nasty with, your body gears up for you to get, fight off the nasties.
This is one of the inflammatory cytokines that you release, very, very early on. Your type 1 interferons. You don't have to necessarily like recognize the virus, the way that uh, your learned immune system does, your cellular immune system and humoral immune system. This is part of your initial innate response. Just bam, I found something virus like, bam, I'm going to secrete this type 1 interferon. Yeah, they actually found these in specific dendritic cells. And which are, some of our, first line innate immune cells, Josh, that recognize pathogens. And there was also a downregulation of alpha defensin associated with our neutrophils. So this is so cool, and this effect of like just saying that this was kind of questionnaire led, right, by the participants that, oh, I think I'm falling in love, or I've fallen in love, or I haven't fallen in love, and it the effect of the falling in love part actually emerged above effects of changes in illness or social isolation or even sexual contact. So it really was, the response of a person saying, "Oh, I've fallen in love," that they increase their transcription
And
of,
because
type 1 interferons.
And because this was a 2 year long study, they took these 47 women and they were able to create this transcript over three different stages of their relationships, which would vary within individuals over time. Ones who were not in love, but in a new romantic relationship. Now, that's going to set off a whole bunch of different things, like it's going to be a rise in cortisol, increased activity in various areas of the brain, higher circulating levels of oxytocin, lower levels of sex hormones. It also would
Mhm.
analyze people who were newly in love, as professed on surveys, and out of love, and would track analysis to involve unbiased characterization of the genes, which can't be uncertain how they feel, matched up with the survey responses of the people. So
Yeah,
they were
it
asked
was really wonderful.
So, when they were enrolled in the study, all participants had recently been in a relationship less than 1 month that was exclusive, but reported not yet being in love with their partners. You also couldn't be a smoker in this study because, ew, smokers.
Yeah, yeah. They had to take out a rather significant confounder. Is if you're a smoker, you mess with these immune functions very, very badly. I know we talk about cancer and lung disease and all the time, but under the hood, Josh, the way that you mess up your immune system and your inflammatory cascades is kind of chaos. So, no smokers allowed.
You
But yeah,
also
you were allowed to.
you also
Yeah,
had to promise to remain in the city for at least 6 months. No fleeing on a romantic getaway.
that's true. So, there was a little bit of like control in here that like, okay, we've got to take away some of these effects of, going around the world to Paris or something like that. But interestingly, Josh, they did work on a couple of other previously uh, noted confounders, such as the feeling of social isolation, right? So this was done in February of 2019. This was before COVID. Okay. But we know that there's still, there was before then even a loneliness epidemic that was starting to permeate. Our wonderful United States Surgeon General is focusing on treatment for, social isolation and loneliness. And so they wanted to kind of weed out that as well. And very interestingly, like I said at the start, even with the feelings of kind of like social isolation and looking at the correlation with the upregulation of type 1 interferons, et cetera, and CTRA gene expression, um, it was more correlated that you would upregulate your type 1 interferons, et cetera, if you were in love versus if you didn't feel the social isolation. Super interesting.
Along with the initial eligibility criteria, participants would, after completing the survey, provide a blood sample, and then they would get twice monthly surveys that basically amounted to, so, you in love yet? Which,
Yeah.
and if you don't believe me, the actual question, when did you first feel you fell in love with your partner? With the response options, this has not happened, within the last 2 days, within the last week, within the last 2 weeks. These surveys would be conducted until such time as the couple had reported having fallen in love, they reported the relationship had broken up, they were selected as a yoked control for another participant who had fallen in love, fourth wheeling as it
Yeah.
were, or 12
Yeah,
months had elapsed.
yeah.
Listen, if you've been dating for a year and it still hasn't happened, it's not going to for science.
Yeah, I think that's a fair bet.
Those who completed the full series of surveys were paid $196.
Woo! Yeah, yeah. And by the way, we always run these types of studies, human studies, especially looking at very sensitive topics like love, and we're also asking about sexual intercourse and behavior. When people are running this kind of a thing, so you know. When you offer a reward for this stuff, you do have to make sure that reward doesn't mess with your results, so to speak. So these are always run through ethics boards. So that, like, why $196? Believe it or not, Josh, that's probably what was estimated to be the maximum that you could give to reward someone for thank you for participating, but not mess with their responses and results and stuff.
Once you go to
Yeah.
$201, you,
I don't know if
you
it's
start getting the romantic comedy setup where two crazy young hot celebrities team up to scam the science department by faking being in love, only to find
oh.
out following a genetic test that they really are falling in love,
Falling
thereby
in love, yeah.
completely invalidating the results of the study and
Yes.
breaking up the scientist couple who worked forever to get a grant to get this established.
And then someone says something like, Sally, don't you know the interferon was in their hearts all along?
You don't
Oh
understand.
my
They're
gosh.
more protected from viruses. These are the perfect scouts for new disease frontiers, young couples in fresh love.
There you go. No, absolutely. But this does tell us something that we're learning about more and more, that intense connections, human to human connections, are really important, not just for the types of health that we think of, like mental health and all this kind of a thing, but it does actually affect us on a biochemical level. Love and connections keep us healthy. Now, on the flip side, Josh, it was really interesting. We did check on people who were falling out of love as well. And 34 paired follow up samples from 17 participants that said they were falling out of love did show reduced expression of type 1 interferon response genes. It wasn't as significant actually as the climb, as people were falling in love, as these women were falling in love. But that's kind of an interesting uh, extra piece of evidence to show that the opposite is also true. That, when your connection to another human being breaks down, that, virus is going to get you.
So, while I would still encourage you to get your flu shot and all other vaccines, if you're going to ignore
Mm-hmm.
everything else we say, then I guess you can at least go out and fall in love.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it in there as a corollary, even though this wonderful, study didn't look at these other kinds of relationships. Keep in touch with your friends, check in, go meet up with people, with proper social distancing if you need to, or that kind of thing. Don't be, uh, don't be, sick with the flu and then be like, oh, but I have to connect with. But yeah, keep your human connections going because they keep you healthy and it's important.
So, that's it for this week. As always, we love to hear your comments, questions, and feedback. If you'd like to support
Hmm.
us spiritually, emotionally, or financially, links to do that are in the show notes, along with links for further reading. And really, these are things that you should read as a couple. They are just some delightful studies, full of important but occasionally ludicrous sounding science.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that we ran the gamut all the way from erection spider all the way to love immunology. I mean, come on, there's something for everyone here.
Quite literally, the love doctors. So, this show is
Yeah, at your
produced by
service.
the show is produced by me with a lot of help from Dr. Santhosh and friends. Our theme music is composed by Rachel Leisure. Until next time, keep a song in your heart, soap on your hands, a shot in your arm, a spin in your globe. And when you've done all of those things, pick somewhere to go with someone special and happy travels.
Love you guys.